Good morning, everybody. I'm Coni Meyers, and I have my dear friend Edward Segal joining me again for another monthly conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about what it's like to either win or lose with your leadership game and your skills. Edward is the leadership strategist contributor for Forbes.com, and I'm so happy to have you with us, Edward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Connie. It's great to be with you again.
Yeah. So there's always something in the news. And I was reading one of your articles that you posted on Forbes.com about Mark Zuckerberg and leadership. So can you leadership right now is going through a lot. I mean, we went through the pandemic and now we're heading out into the public again for some of us. What about why did Mark Zuckerberg make the news when it comes to leadership?
Well, Zuckerberg was in the news again because he got knocked out of the top 100 listing that Glassdoor.com has, which of course reflects the opinions and ratings of the employees of companies. Several years ago, Zuckerberg actually was number one with a 99% approval rating. But that was then, and this is now. Now, not only did he get knocked out of first place, he's knocked out of the top 100. If there's any silver lining for Zuckerberg, it's that he still enjoys a 88% approval rating from his employees. But the point of my article, and what I'm glad to talk about today, is that reputations and popularity can be very much of a roller coaster ride for corporate executives. It has its ups and downs and twists and turns. And unfortunately for the CEO of Facebook, he's had more downs than ups recently. But I think there are very important lessons for any corporate executive, no matter where they are in an organization, about the lessons to be learned from how well or sometimes how poorly executives who are in the public spotlight do, because they often get into trouble by what they say and what they do. And sometimes it's a guilt by association, and the policies or actions of the companies can dramatically affect the reputations of CEOs as well.
You know, we've had other conversations about the fact that you really need to be news media trained and know what to say and do and what not to say. And I think you said something like, keep it simple or keep it short or something like that the last time we talked.
Well, training is really important, and it's really important to have self-control. It really requires a lot of discipline not to say or do anything that might seem the right thing to do or say in the moment. But on reflection, you say, why did I say or why did I do that? So it's really important to stop and think of what you're going to say or do before you do it. You can't recall it. You can't unring the bell, as they say. Modern technology is really interesting because although things like Twitter and Facebook have given corporate executives a lot of great, important, effective ways to communicate, many times they work on their impulse, and the executives will say or do things on social media that may not put them in or their company in the best possible light. That's why I think that Twitter can be a very important tool, but it's also a very dangerous tool. And like all tools, it should be handled carefully by people who know what they're doing and why they are using it.
Well, I think so. One of the things I talk about in my disaster course is the STOP acronym. And it really applies when it comes to the news media. So you need to stop what you're doing, stop everything. You need to, T is take a breath, take 2 or 3 deep breaths, and then observe what's going on inside of you first, and then observe what's going on around you, and then proceed with caution. And I think that particularly applies when you're talking to the news media.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I think Elon Musk at the Tesla could have certainly used your advice. He tweets a lot. Unfortunately, he has everything to lose and absolutely nothing to gain, from my perspective, by tweeting so often. For example, last year he tweeted that he thought, quote, and this is a quote, Tesla stock price is too high. What happened when that tweet went out? $14 billion, B as in boy, was wiped off of the company's value. and 3 billion of that came from Musk's own stake in Tesla. And it was not a good thing to do. It took some time to recover. They might have gotten the money back, but it was still a long-lasting ding on his reputation. But he didn't stop there. Last year, he said that disparaging words about coronavirus, and according to news reports, he echoed what they called right-wing anti-lockdown sentiment by tweeting "Free America Now," all caps and capitalized. This is when we were in the midst of the pandemic, and it's still a problem for many of us across the country. And he wanted to free America from the pandemic. So think through what you're thinking, what you want to do, what you want to say, how you want to say it, and be very careful to think through the consequences, because you can't take it back once it's out there. You can apologize, you can ask for forgiveness, but you can't take it back.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. I mean, you got to stop. You got to stop and think, and you've got to stop and realize what maybe the repercussions might be. I mean, that's really when ego really gets in the big way. I mean, why did he say that the stock prices should go down? I mean, I don't understand that.
No one knows, and he very rarely explains himself. One time he said he was stoned, he was smoking marijuana, just the stuff that people say or do. He's a good role model for some things. I mean, look what he's done with the space program and the startup of his electric car company, and the alternative forms of transportation and how that's helping the environment and exploration of space. I mean, all of those are good things. But if you're not careful with what you say and do and how you say and do it, no matter what your great accomplishments are, people may remember only the bad or questionable things that you did. So be very careful about what you say or do. It'll rub off in your reputation, and it could actually affect your company, as it did temporarily anyway with Musk and Tesla.
Well, I just think, I mean, I think it's important whether you're a company that's a big company like Tesla or Facebook, or whether you're a little one or two person business, like a real estate business, for example. I mean, you really need to think about what you're doing, and you really need to think about how. I always tell people, I was just giving this advice yesterday to somebody that's got a payment issue that they've not been paid. And, they wanted to go in with all barrels burning, and firing away. And I said, do you want to get paid, or do you want to be right? I mean, you may not be able to have it both ways. So what are you going to do? If you want to get paid, then you need to take an approach of, okay, put yourself in the shoes of the person you're talking to and find a way to get them to listen. Or you can go in and, run your mouth and not get paid. That's the bottom line,
Yes. What's a priority? What do you want out of it?
Exactly.
What's most important for you?
Yeah, I just, it amazes me sometimes when people, and in the past, I used to be pretty mouthy myself when I was younger. Thank God I got wiser with age. But I think we just let our egos get in the way. And, just before we went live, you were talking about an article that you're going to be working on about stress and leadership. Tell us a little bit about why you're writing that article.
Well, I'm doing some research now about a new study that's coming out shortly about the impact of stress, mental health issues, and crisis management, and what impact that has on the CEOs and other top corporate leaders who run the company. As we all know, the last 15 months during the pandemic has been an incredibly stressful time for all of us. And it certainly has taken its toll in some dramatic fashions with the CEOs and other corporate leaders. And stress is really important when it comes to managing a crisis, because unless you have a clear head, clear eyes, and are thinking straight and proper, if you succumb to your emotions or the stress of the moment, you're not likely to make the best possible decision in a crisis. and too many corporate officials apparently cited as the reason why they left their company or why they're interested in leaving is because of the stress and the burnout of imposed by the crisis that we've all gone through. So there's a lot of good techniques that are out there that psychologists and the health experts recommended, to keep the stress under control. But if you're not careful, that stress can lead to burnout, and burnout could lead to making bad decisions for your company. And that's the last thing you can afford to do in a crisis, is to make the wrong decision.
Well, that's one of the things I talk about in my crisis knowledge management communication, in the communications and the leadership, is that you need to step back. You need to take a minute. You need to do the STOP acronym. You need to observe what is going on and listen to your instincts. Listen to your inner voice, because that's going to tell you the right angle. If you listen to your ego, then you're driving in the wrong direction. It's taking you down a road that you may not want to go down, and it could be a bad decision. So I think you're absolutely right. I think, and I was sharing with you before we went live that when I went to I thought I was perfectly fine. I'm writing my course, and I'm happy. I'm bubbled with a couple of dear friends, and I'm good, right? And I went to get my first shot, and I cried. And I'm not a crier. I mean, but I literally broke down and cried, and I had no idea that I was being affected that way. And I think in particular, when you are running a business, again, whether it's a big business or whether it's just you by yourself, you stuff that stuff down because you're driving every day. You're trying to push through it. And I think now it's really time to stop and evaluate where we are and how we want to move forward. One of the things I heard a lot during the pandemic with a lot of the people that I talked to is, the thing I've learned is I don't have to say yes all the time. I can say no. And I'm hoping that now that we're back out into the real world, that we don't fall back into those old habits, because that'll help us to lower the stress level.
No, those are great points. In addition to stopping and thinking, stop and study. There are a lot of good, bad, and horrible examples out there about the way people in the public spotlight have responded under stress, what they've done under pressure, the decisions that they've made, and how they turned out. And anyone who wants to learn from others instead of making mistakes themselves, which is always better to learn from others than learning from your own mistakes, although both are important. But there's so many good examples, such as what I just cited a few minutes ago about Elon Musk and his use of Twitter. Take a look at my article that's now on Forbes.com that I wrote just a couple days ago about Mark Zuckerberg, where I wrote it as a leadership strategy contributor for Forbes.com. And I get into a lot more depth and detail about the various public opinion and other polls that have been taken about him and his companies over the year. And frankly, how dramatically faith and trust in him, trust in his company has really declined, almost plummeted over the past few years. And there's good examples to look at in the corporate and political world. No matter what industry or profession you are in, there's likely to be a trade association that represents that industry. Take a look in your own industry for role models to see how people are acting. Check out the trade publications, the business pages, Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, wherever you get your business news, and pay close attention about how people in the public spotlight are doing and what you can learn from their successes and sometimes their failures.
Right, right. So if something like what happened in Mark Zuckerberg, where you go from being number one to not even the top 100 happens, how do you recover from something like that? I mean, that seems like it's almost an insurmountable hill to climb.
Well, interestingly, in a conversation with investors a couple years ago, he said he was not interested in being liked. He was more interested in being understood. And he went on to tell the investors, and I get more into detail in my article for Forbes.com, what he's going to do and how he's going to do it, and the things that are important to him. So obviously he was trying to put a better face not necessarily explaining the past, because you can't fix what you've already done, but you can fix and steer a better course for the future. And that's what he was telling the investment community. And frankly, the best way to recover is to do a good job, have the right priorities, do the right things, say the right things for the right reason, at the right time, in the right setting, and carefully think through the consequences of your word and actions and project it a little bit further. If I say or do this, how's it going to look? And I always advise my clients, don't necessarily trust your own judgment. Talk to your friends, talk to your colleagues, talk to your family members, talk to people whose opinions and judgment you trust, and test out what you want to say or do with them and see how they react. Many companies and organizations, of course, have large staffs, HR people, legal and PR experts on staff or available on a consulting basis. Check out with them what you want to say or do ahead of time. Listen carefully to their reactions, take their advice and recommendations to heart, and take everything into consideration before you say or do that thing. It's tough to recover. Sometimes it's impossible to recover. And every time you make a mistake, you're just setting yourself and sometimes your company back. And that's not something that people should be spending all their time in, is to fix mistakes. Best way to fix mistakes is don't make mistakes at all. So think it through, because the image and the reputation and your popularity can be very important to your company, to you personally and your career. And if you're someone like Elon Musk in the public spotlight and you work for a publicly traded company, what you say or do can actually affect the company's stock and the valuation, and your own stock holding. So there's certainly a lot at stake for what you say or do.
Oh, definitely. Well, and I think the other thing that is really critically important, and it's something that I address in the course, is accountability. I think we first have to be accountable to ourselves. And I think if you're somebody like Elon Musk or Zuckerberg, you need to first of all own what you're saying, and then if you've misspoken, then by all means address it. Don't leave that elephant sitting in the room. Address it and say, hey, I messed up. You know, I mean, I think I tell my team all the time that I make mistakes every single day, several times a day. It's like, okay, I messed up again. What can I say? I'm sorry. But it's like, if we don't hold ourselves accountable, how can we hold people on our teams and in our organizations accountable? I mean, it starts at the top, and it's a trickle down effect. If you're holding yourself accountable, then other people are going to buy in, and maybe that's a way for Zuckerberg to come back, is to say, to reach out to the employees, to reach out and have a conversation with them, and find out exactly what their observations. If maybe they want to do it. Actually, we kind of had this conversation last week or last time, where employees need to feel like they can reach out if they've seen something and they want to do something about it. And obviously, it sounds like to me, if he's fallen that low in the ratings when it comes to his employees, there hasn't been that conversation that needs to happen. And again, it doesn't matter whether you're a big company like Facebook or whether you're a little company with, that's ABC real estate company that has 2 people. If you don't listen, and that's the key right there, don't you think? I mean, listening is, I think, everything.
Yes, but it's also some of the hardest things for some people to do. Um, and listening can be part of a culture of an organization, no matter how large or small. But there has to be that structure, there has to be that culture, there has to be the policy, there has to be the feeling that if I say something, there won't be any retribution, or people won't strike back at me. Unfortunately, there have been instances in corporate world of people who speak up, and the powers that be didn't want to hear it, and it did not end well for the person who spoke up. So it's really important to take a good hard look at your policies and your culture. Do you have the right culture? Do you have the right policies? that will encourage people to speak up? And do you have the attitude and approach of management style that you're willing to listen to people who speak up? A lot of good ideas go by the wayside in the corporate world because people were afraid to speak up and had this great idea, but they said, well, no one would care, no one will listen. So that can work against the company. It can work against the people who have the ideas. But culture is not like a light switch where you turn it off and on. It takes time, it takes dedication, it takes discipline, and it takes practice. But I guarantee the longer you put off changing your culture so it's more responsive and listening and caring, the longer it's going to be to achieve that goal. And in a crisis or any other situation, it's important to have the right culture to deal with a crisis and to listen to problems before they become a crisis situation.
Oh, that's so important. I mean, it's much easier to address something before it happens and be prepared, right? I mean, it's really all about the preparation for a crisis. So, and you talk a lot about that in your book, Crisis Ahead. So, you write a lot of articles. How many articles are you writing this week for Forbes.com?
Well, it's early in the week. It's only Tuesday, so I've gotten 5 or 6 articles in the pipeline. I've written more than 18 this month alone. I've been doing writing for Forbes.com since October, and I looked the other day, and I've written more than 160 articles. And according to Forbes, more than almost 600,000 people have read my articles just since October. So I enjoy writing them. I appreciate people's interest in following my advice, but it all comes down to sharing good examples and sometimes bad examples, sometimes horrible examples of people in the news and how they or their companies have been doing in a crisis situation. And that's the whole focus of my stories on Forbes.com and the leadership strategy section. Of course, I'm always looking for current examples, current crises, and people to talk to. So if any of our people who are listening or watching today have ideas that they'd like to share for future stories, don't hesitate to reach out to me at Edward Segal Communications at gmail.com or go to Forbes.com, go to the leadership strategy section, and you can reach me through there as well.
I don't get to read every single one of your articles. I try to read as many of them as I can, but you're very prolific. So, and I'm sure you have to be. I mean, the good news is and the bad news is all at the same time. Every day there's something new to write about, whether you're writing about crisis or whether you're writing about disasters. There's always something new to talk about and something to say. So, if you have not read any of his articles, please go to Forbes.com and check them out because they're fabulous articles about especially if you are leading your own company. There's great information in there that you can take away. And again, it doesn't matter how big you are. As a matter of fact, I think maybe the smaller you are, the more beneficial some of those articles are on how to be a good leader. And this world right now, now that we're coming out of pandemic, we need strong leaders. We need people that, first of all, can listen. I mean, I think a lot of the anger and a lot of the anxiety and all the stuff that's going on right now, like on the airplanes and just shootings and all of that, really stems from people not being heard. And they have a mental state that just doesn't know how to apply that or what to do with it. And so I think it's even more important now than any time to really, whether you're leading yourself or whether you're leading other people, you really need to be sure of how you're thinking about yourself. So, well, Edward, it's almost time. Any last thoughts about how to win the game of leadership?
Pay attention of how well or poorly others in the public spotlight are doing and what you can learn from their successes or mistakes. And also take a look at my book, Crisis Ahead, 101 Ways to Prepare for and Bounce Back from Disasters, Scandals, and Other Emergencies. It's available as an ebook and paperback on Amazon and available as a paperback wherever books are sold. And actually, with that book led to me being brought on by Forbes.com to write for them now. And a lot of what I talk about in my columns, I go into a lot more depth and detail in the book. So between the book and my columns, I think will provide a good foundation and a continuing education for people who want to be the best leaders they can be, for people who want to prepare for, manage, and recover from disasters or scandals or other crisis situations. So, and if anyone has any questions about what we've talked about today, drop me an email at edwardsegalcommunications@gmail.com, or learn more about my book at publicrelations.com.
And if you want to create some plans for your business, you can go to ckmsolutionsgroup.com and you can download a make a plan, do a plan form. It has questions you need to ask in order to be able to put together a good plan for your business, whether it's disasters or crisis. And, I think people, when they hear about my course, the Crisis Knowledge Management, they think that it's just strictly about crisis and disasters and having an emergency kit. And I talk a lot about managing. It's actually the chapter is called Survival, Mindset, Leadership, and Communication, and that can be used in any part of your business. It doesn't have to be. Hopefully, it's not a crisis or a disaster, and you can take advantage of that information. So, please, I've read Crisis Ahead. It's a fabulous book. It should be a handbook for anybody that has a business, because you get to see the good and the bad and the ugly in there and what to do about it. All right, Edward. Well, we'll be back next month, and we never know what the topic is going to be. I sent him a message yesterday. I go, looked at your article. Let's talk about what happens when you fall out of grace as a leader. And so we always decide at the last minute what we're going to talk about. Edward, thank you so much. What a great conversation this was.
Thank you. I enjoyed the conversation. And between your great book on courses and my columns and book, I think people will be very well prepared to deal with leadership, be the best leaders they can be, and prepare for and deal with and recover from disasters as soon as possible.
Oh, I totally agree. My interview series is called Kick Butt Leadership. And kick butt means when mindfulness meets vision, opportunity, and engagement. And isn't that what we were talking about today? So you've got to be a mindful leader today. You just have to be. All right, everyone. We'll be back next month. Same time. It's the last Tuesday, I think, of the month it is, or the third Tuesday? I don't even know what this is. Third Tuesday. So third Tuesday of the month, Edward and I will be back. Thanks so much for joining us, and I hope you got some good information on how to be a good leader and stay there from this conversation. We'll see you next time.
Bye.